Cute and cuddly.
Why?
Super Bowl halftime, Coca-Cola. A lot of advantages there. Keep your business afloat.
There's less risk
even
involved.
though it's closed for several months.
But why wouldn't you want to sign all your profit or some of your earnings away?
Yeah, you're spending tomorrow's money today. Thank you for tuning in to Entrepreneur. Today we're discussing another entrepreneurial topic. Our episodes are uploaded on every Wednesday.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneur podcast. This is episode 16.
Episode 16, season 25.
Season 1.
Season 1. She keeps track of the numbers.
I do. Speaking of, while we're recording this, I'm working on a little bit of accounting and, a bunch of numbers, typing those in, looking at receipts, all the fun things, So if you hear me typing away, that's what I'm doing.
Click, 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 click.
Is that me clicking? Is that me going through? Yeah, no. Anywho, okay, we always started off with a question of the day. Are you ready, Josiah?
What does anywho mean?
Anybody else listening to me? Because nobody's listening. I don't know. I made that up.
Okay.
Question of the day.
A lot of people say it.
I think it's just a saying. It's just like,
it's a filler
didn't
word.
Was it Michael Scott or somebody else on The Office that would always say funny sayings like that? They'd always he'd always try to come up with like a funny saying and it just wouldn't make any sense. I'm
not sure. Probably something Michael did.
It is definitely something Michael did.
Anywho is just a random transition word.
So anywho, question of the day. Ready?
Yeah, what you got?
Would you rather be covered in fur or covered in scales?
Oh, interesting. I am covered in fur.
Okay, no.
Wrong. So, first thought is fur. I think there's more advantages to fur. If you're covered in scales, while it does in some ways add a somewhat protective armored layer. Usually animals covered in scales of the reptilian type are very susceptible to danger from colder temperatures. So if you have like a pet reptile, a lizard with scales, or a snake, they need a heat lamp.
That's why they're not in Alaska. Praise God.
Look at dragons. Dragons are the ultimate scaly creature. Although, there are monsters of the deep in the ocean, and they have scales. Huh.
This is true.
I didn't think about that. So the approach I'm taking is look at what I would consider the most fearsome beast that has scales versus the most fearsome beast that has fur, and pros and cons of each. Well, as far as fur, first thing that comes to mind is probably the polar bear. Cute and cuddly.
Why?
Super Bowl halftime, Coca-Cola. A lot of advantages there. Think about this,
Oh my goodness.
the endorsements you'd get. No, polar bears are fierce. They are massive.
Yeah, I certainly
They
wouldn't
are
mess with
the
one.
deadliest of all bears. They are furred. They live in ridiculous Arctic tundra conditions. Just fine. And they pretty much kill anything they want to. being here in Alaska, we've never seen a polar bear in the wild.
I don't plan on it.
They're not really in our region. They're going to be a lot farther north and in more
Well above the Arctic Circle.
Coastal regions. But they do have one at the zoo, right? That we've seen?
Yeah.
But at the conservation center, I almost forgot what it was called. They have comparisons of the skull sizes: black bear,
it's the Alaska,
brown bear, the Kodiak brown bear, and then the polar bear. And you, if you've seen a Kodiak brown bear or a brown bear of any type, they are large animals. But the polar bear skull makes the brown bear, Kodiak brown bear, grizzly bear look like a little boy.
Yeah, it's no joke.
So
much bigger.
Also, when I was a kid, I played Zoo Tycoon a lot, the computer game. Polar bear was the best animal. You build an awesome zoo so you could attract all the tourists and customers. Then you build a maze and or just block off the entrance, and you let the polar bear loose.
See, that's funny. You always let the polar bear loose. I would always let the tiger loose or drop the people in the tiger cage.
So we both picked furred animals. Interesting. But the polar bear would throw people around like little play toys.
That's terrible.
So polar bear or a dragon?
Those are your preferences there.
Yeah. So, okay. So polar bears.
If I had to wear polar bear fur, is that what you're escalating this question to?
Yeah.
Or
when you say fur or
scales,
scales, I hear, do you want to be a polar bear or do you want to be a dragon?
Okay, got it. Glad we clarified.
So polar bear, they can swim. They're fast. They're big. They can survive in cold, desolate conditions. They kind of do what they want. Nobody messes with them. They're kind of top of the food chain. Dragon, on the other hand, a polar bear. I'm not sure how they do in warmer temperatures.
No, I don't think they do so.
That's something to consider. I think they can.
I know
they can adapt.
Survive.
I think, but I don't know. Like they wouldn't do well in a jungle.
Yeah, I mean, but that you could say that about a lot of animals.
So then, dragon, very solitary. They can fly. They can breathe fire.
So now you're escalating this to beyond like what temperature and climate could you be into? What could I do action wise?
Well, yeah, it comes along with the fur scales. To cut the conversation short, because I could go on for a while. I think a dragon has more benefits and more powers than a polar bear because of their sheer size, their ability to fly. I think they could adapt to different environments more easily than a polar bear. But I'm going to go with polar bear because polar bears are really, really interesting animals. And yeah, I'm gonna go with polar bear.
Wow, I'm actually surprised. I was kind of thinking the way you were going with that is that you'd become a dragon.
Well,
very interesting.
I think something else to consider. My very first point: reptilian animals with scales don't do well in the cold at all.
That's true.
You got to look at where I live. I live in Alaska. I'm pretty happy living here.
Yeah.
So I don't know that a dragon would do very well in the winter of Alaska. Maybe they would. Maybe they'd thrive. I'm not a dragonologist.
A dragonologist.
But I know for sure a polar bear would do all right. So that's my final answer.
That's very interesting.
Fur, aka
I was
polar
not
bear.
expecting you to go where you went with that conversation. It went from fur, would you rather be covered in fur or covered in scales, to would you rather be a polar bear or a dragon? I love it.
What were you thinking? That's the logical jump that
That's the logical
anyone
jump.
would take.
Well, that's just, I think that's why I just love these questions with you. It's just like, uh, it's just an easy way to learn more about somebody and how they think and go beyond like, okay. You can't just answer, okay, fur or scale and just like, okay, quick answer, scales. And like, just pick one randomly. But that tells a lot about a person too. I don't know. It's just interesting to see your thought process, to see how people think with those. But specifically you, because your explanations are great. Yeah. So
Why? Thank you.
I guess we'll transition here. Last episode 15 was our last one. And we covered how to know your market and cash flow. If you would like to understand more about those, go check that episode out. This episode, we're going to be covering how to start a business and why you should start a business without debt. Dun 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 dun. That is a very prominent thing in American culture right now. So we just thought we'd chat about it.
Yeah. So I'll start the conversation off with, as you may or may not know, last year I transitioned out of the military, finishing up my contract. The military, at least the Army, has a lot of really beneficial classes you can take as you are transitioning to the civilian world. Whether you're looking for a corporate job, a trade skills job, looking to go to school to get new skills, or looking to start a business. I learned a decent amount, and we obviously have gone the entrepreneur business route, self-employed, and they had a specific class for that. Now, a large amount of that class talked about how to use the SBA, Small Business Association, in order to get loans to start your business or boost your cash flow so you could take your business to the next level. And that's kind of the norm thought process when it comes to having a business. Well, you gotta have a good idea, then you gotta find someone to bankroll you, whether it's a personal investor, someone who's a friend, or someone who likes your business idea, a little Shark Tank, something like that.
Or the bank.
I guess, let me pause. Shark Tank is different. They're not, most of them aren't going into debt and getting a loan. They're actually selling a portion of the business.
Yeah.
In order to gain cash to bring the business to the next level. Some
people use investors wisely, and they do this similar concept. Like, you don't obviously have to go on Shark Tank just to get a good investor who buys a portion of your business. The idea that you're trying to hit there is you're looking for somebody to just give you money without qualifying. Like, they don't own a piece of your business. They don't. It's not like a business partner or anything like that. It's like, you own your business. I just need $5,000 to start it. I need $5,000 to grow it, whatever it is, but you just don't have that cash. So you're asking somebody to borrow that money to pay them back later.
Yeah. So we don't have any experience with finding, investors to basically trade cash for a portion of your business. We're just talking about getting loans, going into debt in order to start or grow a business, and we would advise against it, and we've been able to do without that. We have never borrowed money for our current business. on Amazon. And we wanted to talk through some of the ways that we were able to do that. But before we do that, I think some of the reasons we think it's important or worth considering the way we've gone, cash flowing and building your business with money that you've saved or earned from the business instead of borrowing. I think a great example is look at 2020 and what happened with the so-called pandemic, the government shutdowns, and the other implications of that hurt many businesses. I know just in our local area, there's many businesses. I think the easy example to look at is restaurants. Many restaurants that I believe were profitable. They were making money.
Well, there was one specifically, and I won't name the name because I don't know if that's appropriate, but I'm sure you could find it because it was public knowledge because she posted about it on Facebook and like sent it out there. She was, her and her family had grown that business for, I think it was like 30 years. And everything got shut down, all of that stuff. And she was like, I'm closing for good and I'm going to Seattle to find work there. And for 30 years, right? She and her family had owned that business and sadly had to leave. Now, we don't know like the financial side of like her restaurant business, but, I'm sure not using her specific example with finances. It just is crazy how many people, or how many businesses can go not only start off in debt, but now because of 2020 have to go into debt to continue to continue their business. I'm sure if she wanted to continue her business, she could have if she went into debt to make the rent payments, make the whatever payments else she had to make to keep the business going. So it's just sad to see in a year like that where so many businesses that like what you were saying, were profitable, not only in Alaska, but I'm sure across the country, if not world, that were profitable had to close because they weren't. I mean, if you're not making a profit, you can't pay the rent bill. You can't pay the electric bill. Like, you've got bills to pay. It makes sense.
Yeah, well, what we're talking about is when you bring on a lot of debt in order to start a business, not only does your business need to be profitable to pay the employees and to pay yourself, but you also have this debt that you have to pay every month. So I think since we're talking about restaurants, let's stay on that train of thought. So you could open a restaurant. There's a lot of expensive appliances, kitchen tools, whatever it might be, that you need to run a restaurant. There's no way around that. You can rent or lease the space that you're in, and there's probably some ways to rent or lease some of the appliances, but you're gonna have to buy some of the stuff. And if you don't have the money yourself, you're gonna have to get yourself on a payment plan using loan, debt, credit card, whatever it might be. And you can easily get ahead of yourself so that your business is making a profit, but not enough to pay the employees and pay off that debt. So that when something like the government saying, hey, your business is now illegal, not to get into politics, you're in trouble. Because it's more complicated than, okay, I can let my employees go. We have some savings so we can keep paying the bills to keep the lease, etc. You've also got all this debt associated with tools and appliances that you can't even use. Now,
Or
if you were in the situation where you bought those items outright and you owned them, you have way less liability in that you could more feasibly keep your business afloat,
there's less risk
even though
involved.
it's closed for several months.
Right.
You have less liabilities,
Well,
less
even
risk.
we'll just subtract like government shutdown. Let's just assume like, okay, everything's great, everything's open in that sort of situation. You still have a risk of like, okay, what if like for whatever reason it's not as popular this month? People haven't come really to our restaurant. What if it's a scenario of like, seasonal? That happens, right? Who typically, when do you want ice cream? Not necessarily in the winter, though we get ice cream all the time in the winter. Maybe that's Alaskan of us. But you might have slower months, and what do you do? Right, you might prepare ahead and like save up enough money when you have like the big months to pay for those expenses, even in the shortcoming months. But the question still lies, if, let's say, you even have like a fire or with your building, with your restaurant, or something extreme, right? A bunch of people leave, people don't want to come eat at your place anymore. Your point exactly is, if you don't own the pieces of equipment, the very expensive pieces of equipment outright, and you're in debt on those things, then you still have to make those payments until they're done. So let's say you decide to sell like the really nice equipment. Typically, especially in a debt scenario, sometimes you can be under. The value of that item is now less than what the debt is worth for it. So you're now losing money on that item. So that can be a little bit scary of a situation where you have to put yourself in the like, well, now I have to sell my stove. Well, I mean, it's a restaurant, so what do I do there? Now, this isn't to say you can't, you can find, I'm sure used equipment, but it's not to say you can't buy new equipment either. It's just a consideration to say, why go into debt into all these things? Why do I have to start a restaurant with seating service available for $800? Why don't we start with when you've never built this business before, you've never had this business, this isn't you growing. It's like, okay, from out of scratch, I want an 8-person be able to seat 800 people and serve them. Why don't we back up and start smaller in that thought process of growing our business so you stay out of debt?
Yeah, so there's other disadvantages to using debt to start or grow your business. We won't get into those anymore. You could see conversely the advantage in that, well, you could grow your business a lot faster if you just had X amount of money. And if that's the route you want to go, if you know what you're doing and you just need some money to take it to the next level, do what the businesses on Shark Tank do. Find an investor who has the money. Maybe they also bring some experience to the table and form a partnership. Don't just go into debt.
Right.
Give them a portion of the business and bring them on board. I think that's a much healthier way long term and can have way more advantages than getting a SBA loan or whatever it might be. Okay, yeah. So, well, how do you start a restaurant without using debt? Well, you build your way up slowly but surely. You could start with a food truck. You could start by just getting your kitchen at home FDA inspected and certified.
State approved, yeah.
Yeah, whatever the things are there, and start making food out of your home. Mm-hmm. Somehow get yourself on DoorDash. I don't know how that works, but that's a great way to start a cash flow system. And And to get into our second point that we wanted to touch on today, that's what we did for our Amazon business. A couple of years ago, we started with, what was it, $200, $300?
It was 200, yeah.
$200 in a separate bank account, a business bank account, not commingled with our personal funds. $200.
And you basically pulled a Dwight Schrute.
What?
A Dwight Schrute.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Do you remember the episode where he starts off with a thumbtack and ends up with a telescope? But the even better one was the beans. I'm sorry, I called it the wrong thing.
Yes, Mr. Copperfield's
legumes, right? Legumes.
Mysterious lagoons. Legume.
I think it was legumes.
Professor Copperfield's.
That's what it was.
Mysterious lagoons.
So you turned $200 into now a full-time income. That's what I guess what I was getting at there. You pulled a Dwight Schrute. That's what I meant.
Yeah. So the keys to that working is we had a full-time job at the time. We had full-time W-2 type income from a different employer, 8 to 5 kind of scenario, and then our free time, we used that $200 to continually invest and reinvest and reinvest and reinvest. We never took money out of it for personal use until towards the end of 2020. And we continued to roll that money into new products until it is what it is today, which is enough to live off of. And continue to grow the business at the same time. And so, yeah, that took some patience. That took, maybe 2 years or so?
Yeah, it's been about that long.
About 2 years of doing that. And some months, not much occurred because I had a full-time job. I had other commitments. But I think a huge advantage of that is throughout that process, part-time, evenings, weekends, I learned and we learned so much about running a business, about especially running this business.
And you didn't even plan on turning this into a full-time thing.
Yeah.
2 years ago, you were just like, let's just, make a little money on the side. Let's just grow it, have some fun with it. Like, you literally, that's what you were like, okay, I just want to, like, fiddle around with this thing. Okay, let's just set aside $200. And then it turned into, like, a year later, you were like, this is, like, a lot bigger than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it definitely, for most of that 2 years, was just a side thing that, I'd probably keep doing for a while, that would, maybe at some point provide an extra $500,000 in income per month to us, which is awesome. But as things went on, our other business plans changed, and this business continued to grow and grow. And one day we woke up and we're like, whoa,
yeah,
this could be a full-time thing. And then, once I finished transitioning out of the military, and I now had the entirety of my time to focus on this business, the sales and the inventory and the growth skyrocketed. I mean, you can look, I'm not going to share, but you could look at our sales history and you could probably guess which month, just based off of the numbers, started doing this in a more full-time capacity.
Well, and I think that's huge. And I think I'm going to bring it to another point of like why you should start a business without debt. Going back to when you originally started this, when we originally started this, the $200, the like, hey, I just want to fiddle with this on the side. Like, okay, let's do that. Was just an idea. It was a slight dream of like, sure, let's just do this for fun. And then as the months progress, you're like, okay, like let me maybe dedicate a little bit more time, or this month it's not going to work out, but it was still like a dream to grow that. And then about a year or so later, when you were like, we were talking about it and you wanted to own your own business and run it, as a full-time thing, as you were deciding that you were going to leave the military, we obviously looking at this business, being not specific with our example, it's a great way to start out without debt because you can grow a dream into actual fruition of doing that thing. So, you know, there's a lot of people, especially restaurant industry, you probably picked a very good example of this. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere between like 70 and 80%. I'd have to go look at the stat, at least in the United States, that 70 to 80% of restaurants close within the first year or 2 years, something like that, of opening. And I wonder if a lot of that reason is not because they had poor dreams. That's an amazing dream. That's an amazing business. Like, to provide food to people, to provide maybe your type of ethnic food, to provide your favorite style to a pizza, to your favorite style of like whatever cuisine you're selling, or just to provide an experience if it's a certain style of restaurant. Those things aren't bad. But why do you think most of those fail? I mean, we can go even beyond money here. I think it's just they were just like, okay, let's do it without even, you know, planning out a process. There's something to say. There has to be some sort of balance, especially with money, that you test something out and you grow slow and make it bigger. There are, I'm sure, plenty of restaurants that started off with 800 seating 800 people and have grown successfully. Don't know how many of those are, so I can't say for sure. But like, if I was going to go start a restaurant tomorrow, it certainly wouldn't be that, especially without debt. It would probably be something small, either from our home, a food truck, something if we could pay for cash with it, and grow it from there. Had that dream of like sitting 800 people in your restaurant. That's a great dream, but try to start small and grow it. Grow it to that point, because without debt, it makes those things possible for like actually accomplishing that. If that kind of I don't know how to explain that.
Well,
like,
I think what you're trying to say is when you mess up and hit a roadblock or have a failure, it's easier to recover. And
Yes.
and using our
Yes.
example, since we were growing the business slowly and steadily while still having a full-time job, yeah, I made some mistakes along the way.
oh, plenty.
Bought terrible products from time to time.
Yeah.
Or really screwed something up with the customer and lost money. But that was okay. It was part of the learning process. We weren't depending on it for income. We didn't have really any financial obligations.
Right.
We didn't have employees or contracts or anything like that. And so it was a safe environment, really, to fail in and to pick ourselves back up, figure out what we learned, and move on without destroying the business. And we'll have to look up the statistic about restaurants in particularly failing within the first year, and I wonder if there's
It could be
any
2. I can't remember.
any studies on why. I would guess most of them is not necessarily because their food is terrible, but probably
not.
more poor financial management.
And slash
The business money side of things. And even us, even with 2 years of doing this Amazon business right now, as Kelly mentioned earlier, we're going through and realizing we weren't doing some different accounting things the best way possible. And so now we're having to backtrack, and it's painful. It's painful.
Yeah.
It's not fun. But it's a lesson that we're learning as we go along the way.
We'll never make this mistake again.
Yeah, and it's something that we can recover from easily.
Right.
If there are issues financially, because we don't have any debt. We don't have any credit card bills.
Right.
The money that's there is there.
It's all ours. We don't owe it to anybody.
It's real USD.
Real USD. And I think all the brings it to another point, why you should not only just start a business without debt, but even grow your business without debt. So we'll bring up an example we've brought up several random times. It's from a long time ago. The lady that makes knits insects, okay, or knits ladybugs. And then we made it to a broader point of like, okay, let's say maybe
Aunt
that's
Martha's back.
Aunt Martha. Her ladybug knitting is maybe too specific because not enough people want that item, but maybe she went to insects and maybe that's more people's like niche, like more people want knitted insects. Okay, so we're trying to grow the business. Aunt Martha's trying to grow her business, and she already decided, obviously, like the ladybugs weren't really selling, so she went to insects, started selling more. She wants to grow it. She wants to find more customers. She wants to go outside of her city or state. She wants to go national or something. Maybe not open up like a bunch of locations, but maybe she just is selling them online. How does she do that without going into debt? Well, she's already found, because it's not a started business, she's already had it for a while. She's already found this niche that works, that she's found her client base, her customer base that comes back. She's found like the next group of people that is still growing. So how do you do that without debt? You just grow slowly. You find the next step. You save a little bit of extra from your current sales to then grow it to the next thing. Maybe she wants to have a storefront. Maybe that's her dream of growing. Maybe she wants to go national and that's her next step for growing. I mean, growing a business isn't like a set, like, okay, well, first you start off as a sole proprietor and you're just you, and then you hire one employee, and then from there you hire two more employees, and you then have a storefront, and then you have to go across your state, and then you have to go national. No, that's not, there's not like a set stone like growing your business. You could stop whenever you want. You could stop with just you as the employee and growing it that way. You could grow your business to do a national thing, which is amazing. I'm not going to downplay any of these because it just depends on your business and what you want to do, but do it without debt, because growing that way will help confirm and make sure you're not taking more of a risk than you need to. Like his example is as what you were saying before with our own business, because we went without debt, and as we saw it growing, and then you decided, okay, let's turn this into full time. You grew it without debt, so you knew how much you owed, and like as you're still taking risks, they're not so much more riskier because we don't owe people money. I mean, obviously, right, there's some bills to pay and stuff. I mean, it's not like we just have zero expenses out the door. Obviously not. But it's just something to say of like, you're not assigned future worth, future profit away off into these items you're currently using or have. Maybe that's a better explanation. That's what debt is, essentially. You are now assigning your profit, especially for a business, for thinking just business strictly. You're assigning your profit, part of your earnings that you make, off into the future, however far, whatever the loan's at, timeline, a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever it is, off into the future of, I have to pay this off for the next 5 years. Now, sure, you could pay it off faster potentially, and sure, it could be helpful, but why wouldn't you want to assign all your profit or some of your earnings away?
Yeah, you're spending tomorrow's money today, which there's no guarantee of tomorrow's money. So it can get you in a really difficult situation if something happens and the money you thought you were getting tomorrow doesn't show up. So that's our thoughts on starting a business or growing a business. We discourage debt, even credit cards. Oh, but credit cards aren't debt. Well, you really are still spending tomorrow's money today. Because when you swipe a credit card, you then at the end of the month have to go and pay it off. And what if you actually accidentally swiped it a few too many times?
Right.
Interest.
Yeah.
29.99% APY.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be. They'll smack you. But you're missing out on reward points. Well, I think we've talked about this before. The point system's made up. You can still get cash back. You can still get rewards without a credit card.
Yeah. Well, and another thought, even like going beyond that, you could just pay for cash with what you're not spending on your credit card. Like, you tend to spend more when you're swiping a credit card, right? Instead of doing that, you can end up just paying cash for that item, and you're not limited to certain airline flight dates, certain products that are available for benefit. I mean, not that getting any of those things is ultimately evil or bad. It's just like, I could probably save more money and spend the same amount and just pay cash for it on my terms.
Yeah. If you want to hear more on our opinions about debt and credit cards in general, that was part of our financial series back in January. Let us know. Do you agree or disagree about our method for building businesses? And long term, our goal, maybe we'll have this Amazon business real long term. But I think long term, our goal is to take profits or cash flow from this business to then move into something different. Maybe real estate, maybe a restaurant. Who knows? So if you want to open a restaurant, you don't have to start with a food truck. You could start with selling on Amazon. And then once you build up enough cash to start that restaurant business, you can sell that Amazon business or keep it on the side. Have employees run it for you. And you can go move on to the next project. That's our methodology and what we hope to and plan on doing in the future with our business journey.
Yeah. It's an interesting journey so far. And always, this is our next recommendation, little extra for you. Don't forget to do the accounting or hire someone to do so. It's important. So you know what's coming in and out. Not that we don't ultimately know. That's not what I'm getting at. But certainly going through receipts after the fact, not like as you purchase these items, is a little harder. It's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. Set procedures up at the beginning. Don't avoid it.
But it's so much easier to avoid it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you want to wrap things up for us, Kelly?
Let's wrap it up. So follow us on Instagram. We do stories. We do some posts. We try to keep it business focused, but some personal stuff in there too, like Legos. We love Legos in this house. So follow us there. I'm at jellybagel_AK. And Josiah is at baconbagel_AK.
Yeah, you know that.
Yeah, I knew that. That's on Instagram. And then obviously, if you're listening right now on your favorite podcast app, great. But if you're listening or watching on YouTube, go check us out on a podcast app. And if you're on the podcast app, go check us out on YouTube. We try to put some extra links in there on YouTube. We do we have a handful of extra videos for now, but maybe in the future we'll do a few more of special tidbits for certain business items and whatnot that we recommend using, but then how to use them, especially with postage. Go check out some of those. Those are pretty good. And then, check us out on your favorite podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Or I guess if you don't want to do 5-star, just leave us an honest review. Yeah.
But only if it's 5 stars.
But only if it's
But
5
you can
stars.
leave reviews on the podcast stuff.
Yeah, on your favorite app.
I didn't even know that. I'll have to go
Yeah.
pad our stats.
Pad our stats. Oh, yikes. But if you want to know how, okay, go answer Josiah's question from earlier about, what was it, about debt? What your thoughts are. Do so on Instagram because it's a little easier that way and we see it more easily. Because you can't really like comment on the podcast app.
Yeah, if you want to or have started a business, where did you get the money from? Is there something that we're not thinking of as an option? Is there a better way? Are there downsides to the way that we have done it? Let us know.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
See ya.
Bye.